Hello, Forecaster here again, and we are back for Detour number 10, and this is Gnomoria. Gnomoria is a, it's a dwarf fortress-like, I would probably call it. It's a colony management game where you control a tribe of gnomes who have left their homeland for some reason, and you are trying to establish a new colony or a new kingdom. And it is a very, very deep game, similar to Dwarf Fortress, but as you can see, it has a graphical tile set style to it. It's not super detailed, but it is much more detailed than the default ASCII character interface of Dwarf Fortress, of course. And it still has a very high learning curve. There are a bunch of things you will need to do, at least in the very beginning, to survive. And I'm going to show you those things. We're going to start a new kingdom, which is going to be called Treat Weasel, apparently. And we're going to skip the advanced setup, which I don't really tend to do. You have a number of difficulties. I tend to play on normal. You should know that this game is pretty difficult, even on normal. But I tend to play on that anyway, just because I want to get better at it. So we hit generate. It's going to generate a map of the size we specified, of course, and the bigger the map, the longer it takes. The map is very deep. You have just over, I think you can go down to negative 102, where ground level is about 0. And that's pretty deep, so there are a lot of tiles to generate, so it's understandable that it takes a bit, and the wider the map, the more tiles it has to generate, of course. Now the game is, I think it's made by a single person. The developer is called Robotronic Games, but I think it just consists of a single person. I'm not entirely sure about that. And like I said, the game is very deep. There are a lot of things you can make in the game. It has tons of crafting. You can make different kinds of foods. You can have farms with fruit trees or strawberries and wheat and stuff. There are mechanisms you can make, and unfortunately I've never gotten so far as to actually get to try those, which is a bit unfortunate. So this is the game. As you can see, it looks like the chunk of the world we saw in the menu screen. Now there's an interesting issue with the game. You can see when I use if I use the W, A, S, and D keys to pan the camera around, these white lines appear somewhere or sometimes, and I can get them to disappear by positioning the camera in the right place. If I use the left mouse button to pan around, the lines don't appear, and I don't know why that is. It's clearly a bug. But it doesn't matter. I'll use the mouse to keep the lines away. Never seen those before. Regardless, this is the game, like I said. Use the scroll wheel to scroll through the levels, and as you can see, if we go down, we can go quite deep. We can't see that deep, of course. We can see some water. And right here are our gnomes, which we start with. I believe we start with 9. We can go into population and assign them to get a list of all our gnomes. We can see what their skills are, and of course they have different skills. They can level up in them by doing jobs. They are all idle at the moment. Now we also start with a bunch of resources. You can see a crate here, and in this tile there are actually 3 crates, which are full of items. Each one can hold 32, as you can see. We also have a couple of barrels, which are full of wine, and there's also a cotton bag. And these are the 3 different storage methods that are in this game. The way it works is that you can have items in a tile on the ground, and certain items will stack, some others will not. Things like stone and dirt will stack, I know. Other items like logs will not, so a single log will take up an entire tile. And to alleviate that, you can use crates instead. Crates store items like logs and planks and stone and dirt and fruits, basically solid items. And you can stack up a bunch of different items in a crate to store items a lot more efficiently. Barrels store liquids, of course, like wine and beer and other things you can make. Sacks are used to store seeds and tree cuttings, things like that. Basically organic or farming related things, as far as I know. And that's pretty much that. You're going to want to make more of these, of course. Now, these crates are uninstalled, and what that means is that they are items and not buildings, so to speak. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do when starting this game is first we're going to go into agriculture, and you have this menu down here. You can also right click, which I'm going to do because it's a little more clear what I'm doing. I'm going to go into forge, and I'm going to assign, if I left click, I can draw out an area, and then left click again to confirm. You can see that foraging highlights these little bushes here, which are strawberries, I believe, or something like that. I'm going to assign those to be foraged, and that is going to clear them away. I'm going to right click to deselect the tool, then I'm going to start the game, and it's immediately going to save. Now the game is permadeath, which means that, at least unless you change something in the advanced setup, I think, which means that the game auto-saves, or it saves when you quit, and you can't reload older saves. You only have the latest one. So if something goes wrong, you can't undo it by default. I think there's a way to change that, but I might be wrong. The game also has Steam Workshop support, and there are a bunch of mods for it that do a variety of things. You should have a look through that if you're interested in that. Some of them make things easier, and some of them may make things harder. Some just add things. So now that the strawberries are almost cleared away, we can clearly see that they are strawberries. I don't know if there are other berries in the game yet. The game is released. It used to be in early access, but it was released on the 23rd of February 2016, so almost a year ago, and it is still being developed as far as I'm aware. And before then it was in early access, but still available. Now, I'm going to want to define a farm, and having cleared away, as you can see, I can't define a farm on top of these bushes, which is why I cleared these strawberries away. I'm going to define a 7x14 farm. It's more than enough. And then I'm going to set wheat. You can see that I have 98 plots in this farm, which is more than sufficient for my 32 wheat seeds that I start with, which are in this bag over here. If we go into this, I have 2 bags actually, one of strawberry seeds and one of wheat seeds. Now I also start with 2 yaks, which have probably wandered away a bit. There's one. I don't know where the other one is. No clue. But I'm going to want to take care of those as well. The yaks are important because one of the items you need to craft things in this game is a bone needle. And the only way to get a bone needle is to acquire bones. And the quickest way to do that which isn't very quick, is from slaughtering animals. I believe you can also get it from corpses from enemies, but you won't see those for quite a while, which is good. So again, we want to go into agriculture and pasture, and we want to draw out a pasture somewhere, probably not too far away, probably not there. The drawback of using the left mouse key to pan the camera around is that you also select the tile with whatever tool you have active. Let's draw out a bit of a pasture over here. You can see that I can't have a pasture on this clay here, probably because it doesn't allow grazing. So 9 by 6 should suffice. We'll set it to our yaks, and you can see we have 2. Now we can see that the pasture can hold 4 animals. If you want more animals, you're going to have to define a bigger area, of course. And then we have some other settings that we are going to ignore, and there it is. And it is going to be called a yak pasture because we assigned yaks to it. You can also give it a custom name if you like. Now, we have a rancher gnome who is going to lead our yaks to the pasture. The pasture they're going to hang out in this area. You don't need to put up anything around it to hold them in. They'll stay in there by themselves, which is a mistake I used to make. I tried to build a fence around it, which I didn't really need to, so a huge waste of time. And eventually they're going to breed, because we of course start with a male and a female yak. And then we can slaughter the offspring and produce some stuff from that, and also get some food, of course. Now the second thing you're going to want to do is dig your way into the mountain here, because of course, as gnomes is similar to dwarves, gnomes like to live underground, and you can build outside if you want, but you still need materials to do so. And so the easiest way to get those materials is to dig, and you might as well build your base inside of a mountain. So in terrain, mine, actually we're going to want to remove a ramp first, make a hole here. You can see that that tile became green. That means that there's a job there that someone is going to do. Now in terrain mine wall, we can assign walls, which are these tiles, to be mined. And I'm going to make a kind of a corridor in here like that, not like that. Job, cancel that, and then go for mine again. Then I'm going to make a few rooms. I'm going to want a pretty large storage room. Then I'm going to have a bit of a bedroom, I guess, here, or I can use the right mouse button to pan around as well, which is nice. I'd forgotten about that. And then I'm going to want a crafting room here, which I'm going to space out to allow a few crafting workbenches in. Now, if I unpause the game, our 2 miners, which we have, are going to start digging. And they're going to dig out this, and now both of them can work. And you can see that this is mostly dirt. We have some stone over here, which we are going to need to mine eventually. Now we are going to want to designate an area, stockpile, and if I press F, it's going to lower the walls so that I can see better, but it's not going to lower these undiscovered tiles. So once these are done, I'm going to define a stockpile here. I'm basically going to allow everything in this one because it's my first one. And then we are also going to clean floor here, which is going to make them remove all of this dirt. And I'm actually going to do that in everywhere to get rid of the dirt. Now, the next thing we're going to want to do is we have these bags and the crate and barrel up here. But like I said, they are not constructed. They are items. So we want to build them so that we can actually use them for storage. They will take items out of them, but they will not put items into them. I think they will take items out. So in build and storage, we have crate, barrel, and bag. And if we go into crate, we can specify what kind of crate we want, or any crate, and we can see that we have 3 crates in total. We select build, and then I can left click once to start dragging. And since I have 3 crates, I'm going to put down 3. If I put down more, it's going to try to find appropriate workbenches where crates can be made. Unfortunately, I don't have any of those right now, of course. Then I'm going to do the same for my 2 barrels. You can see I have there. I'm going to put them there. And for the bags, so that I can use them, and put them there. So now my 2 builders should get to that. Start installing things. You can see that the dirt stacks. They are stacking them together, but like I said, other items do not stack. Another thing we're going to want to do is going to agriculture, fell trees, and we're going to want to pick a lump of trees to be cut down because we're going to need wood. We are also, like I said, we're going to need stone. So I think what I'm going to do, I know this area here has stone. So I'm going to go into terrain, remove a ramp here, then mine in here to get some stone. And there's stone for me. Just need a little bit of that to start with. And down here, outside, I'm going to build a crude workbench. And as you can see, it requires any log, which I now have a bunch of, and any raw stone, which I have a little bit of. Now this thing is your starting workbench, and it's basically, its only purpose is to make other workbenches. It's very slow and inefficient, but I'm going to keep it around for a while. Now I think I actually want to put it in here next to the stockpiles. I have ready access to the things because the stone and the logs are going to end up in here eventually. Some of them are going to be used to build that. So let's start the game. Now I'm also going to want to build a couple of beds. And the only beds I can make right now are straw beds, because they're just a pile of straw. They only take straw. Eventually I'm going to want to make proper beds and proper rooms for my gnomes. But of course I'm going to need a number of specialized workbenches for that. And it's going to take a while, and the gnomes are going to need to sleep before then. I want to be careful not to use all my straw, because the straw is what the yaks eat, of course. So I'm going to need to keep a supply of straw to keep the yaks fed, because if they die, I'm going to be boneless. Which is going to be very, very bad. Now, the crude workbench is complete. So if we go into that, I'll get a crafting tab. We also have the overview with the priority of the workbench, and I'm going to set that below the default priority, which is 5. So then when I build other workbenches, they are going to be prioritized over the crude workbench. And you can also see this option, accept generated jobs. And what that means is that when you place a building that you don't have all the components for, the game is going to try to find, like I said earlier, to find the appropriate workbenches and create crafting tasks for those components. And we can demonstrate this. So I'm going to leave it like that. In the crafting menu, you can see that this crude workbench can make 4 things: planks, chairs, workbenches, and chisels. Now, the chair, workbench, and chisel are components for building other workbenches or workstations. Planks are, of course, a component in making chairs and workbenches. The chisel just takes raw stone. Now, if I go into build, workshop, and then I'm going to want wood, and I'm going to want to make a carpenter. Carpenter is used for carving things out of wood, of course, or hammering things together out of wood. Like it can make chairs, workbenches, and doors and other things, bed frames, and a lot of other stuff. And it needs a workbench and a chair and a chisel, which of course are made in the crude workbench. At first, it can't make chisels. Chisels are made in one of the stone crafting stations, of course. But I'm going to build this, and as you can see, I have none of these things. I lack a chisel, chair, and a workbench. But when I place this, and I'm going to, I can rotate it by pressing R. It's actually in a good rotation. I'm going to put this here. We're going to pause the game to keep things from happening. Now, you can see that I placed a blueprint. It is yellow, which means that it is a queued up task, but nobody is working on it at the moment. In here, in the crude workbench, oh, okay, it actually hasn't happened yet. Eventually, that's odd. That would queue up that task for us. Craft missing ingredients. Maybe it's just because people are busy. Let's speed up time a bit, see if anything happens. There we go. Okay, now things are happening. So if we go into here now, you can see that a workbench crafting job was added. And it says for build job because it was auto-generated by this task. So somebody tried to do this, but realized that we need a workbench, so a job was queued up. The workbench in turn need planks, so a plank job was created for that workbench. And if I add jobs manually, I can cancel them, but I cannot cancel these. The only way to get rid of these is to cancel this job. We speed up time. We're going to see that planks are going to be made. The music in this game is quite nice as well. It's going to get more logs, probably. Yeah. And like I said, this game is very, very deep, and there is no way I can show everything or even very much at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to we're going to exit this game, and we're going to load up a save that I've already played on for a bit longer than this, but still not very long. You can also, by the way, assign specific gnomes to a workbench, and only they will be allowed to use that workbench from then on. So if you have a specific gnome that you want to do specific crafting tasks, you can assign them to a specific workbench and then assign tasks to that workbench. But let's hit escape, save and exit to go back to the main menu, and load game, and then the wheeled land is my other save, which I have been playing on for a little bit longer. You can see that the world is different. We have some lines. There we go. Now you'll see that I have, for one, I have a different layout. I have a pasture, I have 2 farms, one for wheat and one for strawberries. And I have a bunch of workbenches that I have already constructed. So I have a sawmill, a carpenter, I have a stonemason, which can make chisels, can also make chairs and tables out of stone instead of wood. Saw blades are used for the sawmill. The stonemason makes these things out of stone blocks. The stone blocks are made in the stone cutter. Then I also have a butcher shop, which is used to butcher corpses for meat and bones and such, of course. And then queued up, I have a kitchen, which is used to prepare food, combine certain ingredients into food items, which are better. And then I also have a distillery, which can turn things like fruit into wine, for example. I also, up here, have queued up the construction of a well. A well is built out of stone blocks and planks, and it provides water. It provides a drinking place for your gnomes. Because if you run out of things to drink, and of course you start with a bunch of wine, but if that runs out and you don't have a distillery yet, and have been making more, your gnomes are not going to be happy, and they are eventually going to die of thirst. So building a well, if you can, is a good idea. The problem is that you need to build it above water, like I have here. If you don't have an open water place like this, you're going to have to do some digging, or may have to do some digging to get to water, which can prove tricky. But building a well is a good idea, so that's why I have that queued up. And we can see if we go into the stone cutter here, we have blocks for a well. I also have a furnace. Now you'll notice that I have a stairwell here, which goes down into the ground. And I've dug my way down all the way here to get stone. I also have a second floor, where I'm going to put some smithing stuff, is the idea. Now the way you dig down and make stairs is in terrain. You have mining, which is on the current level, and digging, which digs down. So if you take stairs down, you'll see that on this floor, it will simply remove this tile, and on the tile underneath, they will cut out a set of stairs. So that is what I have done, of course. So for example, if I wanted to continue here, you can see right here, it would cut out the space in front. Press F to see a little better. In front of the stairs here, and then dig out a new set of stairs below it. So we can queue that up to see what that looks like. Now a miner is going to come down and do that. And there's my new set of stairs. There's a lump of stone there left over. And now I have one level lower to mess around with. Now, you can find ores and stuff, of course, in the ground. You have to do a bunch of branch mining like this, and you will find it eventually. You can also find ravines and stuff, big crevices and open areas underground, and you can spot ores on the edges of those, which is handy. Be careful though when you dig down, because lower down monsters can spawn, and they will, when they spawn, will seek out your gnomes and try to kill them. And if you don't have guards, that can get really bad, and even if you do have guards, that can go really badly. So dig down slowly, and you should also put up torches if you can. You can see we have a torch here. Now, unfortunately, a torch, I think, requires coal. And I don't have any coal at the moment. Let's see. Should have a torch here. Yeah, requires coal. Now, you can make coal in a furnace if you have one of those. Say, one of the crafting stations. I think it is... yeah, furnace, which requires furnace and bellows. And you can turn wood into charcoal, which is basically the same as coal, or you turn wood into coal, which can be used to make torches, and that is a good idea. I have had skeletons spawn in my mines and surprise me and then kill my gnomes, which is not good. Now, this has been a pretty long video, and it looks like we have a bunch of idle gnomes, so I'm going to need to sort out. But I'm not going to show much more. It would take way too long, and I also think that this is a game you need to discover a lot yourself. Although getting some help is not a bad thing, because like I said, it's a very deep game, and the way to do certain things might not be very obvious. So there's a wiki for this game that explains certain things, that has a bunch of tutorials for beginners and such, and you should definitely read those to get into the way the game works and such. And like I said, there are really advanced things later in the game, like mechanisms with hatches and levers and things, and these are in here. They are locked behind research, so you can't build them immediately. And these are only categories, I think. These will reveal more sub-items when you unlock them. And like I said, I haven't gotten that far yet, ever. I've always lost before then, for one reason or another, starvation or attacks and such. But yeah, so I really like this game. It's a very good alternative to Dwarf Fortress that is easier to get into and get started with. As you may be aware, Dwarf Fortress has graphical tile sets, but installing those and getting them to work correctly can be a pain, and this is a very good alternative to that. And with that, I'm going to end the video, and I will see you in the next one.